would be great to have this be as interactive as possible, even though we're on a virtual setting. So what I mean by that is if you do have any questions as I'm going through, please feel free to either utilize the Q&A function, raise your hand, and ask all the questions that you have. I have some of my colleagues here behind the scenes watching the Q&A so that they can get those questions answered for you. And lastly, I will make sure to leave some time towards the end of our session to answer any other questions that may come up. So that being said, I am going to go ahead and share my screen in a second here. While I'm getting that sorted, I did want to explain some of the updates that we've done. So recently we have updated our LLM or our large language model with it, which is the basis of AI technology. And this update has allowed us to provide outputs, so your notes that have more information and more customization abilities, which is really great because we do know that all doctors are individuals and therefore your notes typically reflect your style and your individualism. So with this, I am excited to show you the updates. So what I've done to prepare for today's session, just in the sake of time, is I have gone through a pretend appointment with a patient here. So I have my transcript. The patient came in with two main issues. One was lower back pain, and the second was a rash around the waist. So just to give you a little bit of a contextual information there. And then I've already asked Mika AI to draft my note in a version 1 for me. What we'll be talking through today is in this redraft notes section, you'll still have your add instructions section available, which is same as before. So if you wanted to copy and paste any additional information for the scribe to utilize, you can add it here. If you wanted to add any social or interaction context that you didn't want to verbalize in front of the patient, you could also add the information here, still same as before. The new aspect of it is this adjust style section. So we now have 4 different criteria where we can go in and select the threshold of how we want the note to be created based on these 4 standards. The first one is information. Now, what you can do is you can hover over each of these criteria and get a little pop-up to explain it further. So the information really can be summed down into how much. So how much data, how much information do you want the scribe to be pulling into that end note? You can use the focused threshold to only pull in those essential details or as much detail as possible. With each of these new criteria, you'll see the sliding scale here, and you have the ability to click through. When you're using this, I do recommend clicking on the word. It's a little bit more user-friendly than trying to drag and drop. So in today's session, what we'll do is we'll go through each of these 4 criteria and also the examples associated. Afterwards, I'm going to redraft this note once with some manipulated data here. So for the focused information, you can see that the example is short and sweet. You have the problem, how long it's been going on, and the test results. One important thing to keep in mind is all of these examples are pre-input by our team and is not in any way related to your note. So it's just an example. If we click into standard, automatically we see more information included here. So you have more description about what the pain feels like, the duration of the pain, and again, more symptoms there. Lastly, clicking into detailed right off the bat, again, we see even more information, including previous test results and previous medical history. Moving down to concision. Now, if I had to describe concision, I would say it is how the note is written. So if you wanted it to be as succinct as possible with abbreviations and shorthand, or as expansive as possible. So again, in this example here, we can see that weak is shorthand, with is shorthand to be short and sweet. Going into the standard output, there is no abbreviation in sight, no shorthand, everything is written out in full words. And lastly, that expansive threshold gives even more detail. So full proper sentences with extra descriptive words included. For the audience style, there are two selections that can be made. So either patient or medical. Now, patient would be more patient or layperson friendly verbiage, and medical, of course, would have the medical terminology added in for whatever is going on in your appointment. So we can see in this example that it says type 2 diabetes mellitus with additional information about the symptoms. And clicking into patient, it simply says high blood sugar with diabetes in parentheses. Now, an instance where you might want patient friendly verbiage is if you use our patient handout note, where the context of the appointment is being sent directly to the patient and you want it to be as digestible as possible. Medical, of course, would be for your own sake in your own notes, or maybe if you're using any of the consult letter templates. It looks like we have some questions coming in, so I'm just going to take a quick second, stop sharing my screen here so I can read through some of them. We had a question from Jennifer. No, the style won't change permanently in this section. Um, I will get into the area of your account where you can change it for the template with every use. So great question there, Jennifer. So the other question that came up is the problem in my note was the low back pain, and on the right-hand side, it shows chest pain. So this goes back to what I was saying earlier in that these are just examples on the right-hand side of my screen and in no way related to the actual note transcript. So those examples are going to be the same every single time you look into your account, regardless of if you've had an appointment populate that information. With the concision, how are the abbreviations determined? Is there a specific list of abbreviations? Now, that's a really good question. Off the top of my head, I know for some of the basic ones, it would just be standard, most common way to write out abbreviations. When it comes to the more technical information, that is one that we'll have to loop back on and get you the direct answer for. So if you did want to send your contact information through to my colleague here, who's the moderator of the meeting, we can get that exact answer for you. Okay, moving on. I'm going to share my screen again and we'll keep going through. So I did just want to show the difference again because the question came up. So these examples on this right-hand side have no relation to the contacts that I have had in my appointment. Now, the fourth and final style piece is the tone. And what this really focuses on is objectiveness and emotional framing. So if you wanted just the facts, that's where you would use the objective piece. So you can see that the patient reports insomnia and they note worry of the diagnosis and the impact on their family. Now, balance brings in a little bit more of the description of the emotional or social context of the conversation. So you can see that it changes the output to expresses concern over the potential impact, and then also gives a little bit more description into that insomnia. And lastly, the empathetic will add more as much information as it can based on how the conversation went. So you can see the patient tearfully describes insomnia and expresses understandable worry about the impact on the family. A couple things to note with this is the AI will need to still register this information. It's not just going to assume based off of a diagnosis that the patient was tearful about it. So a couple ways that this could be included in the appointment transcript or conversation is if the patient mentions, sorry, doc, for breaking down and crying in front of you, but I am really worried about this diagnosis and what the impact may be. Or maybe you mention the crying in the appointment yourself. Alternatively, if you wanted to add some of this more empathetic context, you could leverage that add instructions section if you didn't want to call out the patient directly that they were crying. You could add it here and give the additional context that way. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip all of these to the highest level of context or information, and I'm going to redraft the note so we can see a quick example of how it changes from the different levels. And then just for everyone's awareness too, for this original note, I've used the standard or the middle level of each of the three styles, and then still medical information or medical vocabulary. Now, I do really recommend that all of you spend some time to play around with the different styles and the different settings to see what kind of output would be the most beneficial to your practice and your style of writing. So I'll just scroll through this quickly for sake of time. I'm not going to read through any of it, but you can see just more information generally in each of these sections. All right, we have another question. Also, I want to thank everyone for being so engaged and asking all the questions. It really makes it a lot more enjoyable to go through this. Um, so the next question is, how would you suggest we improve capturing things like crying, frustration, and other emotions in the notes, since patients don't always explicitly acknowledge that audibly? So again, this is where you could add that additional information in that instructions section and just add more context about what happened in that appointment or that interaction. And then Mika AI will use that context to repopulate a note for you. Great questions. Thank you. So that shows the additional style adjustments within your one note output. So this was a question that we had. Um, our viewer was ahead of me by a couple of steps, but now what I'll do is I'll show you how to edit your template for every use moving forward. So for those of you that are familiar, any instructions that you did previously or now moving forward in the note itself will only be for this one appointment. What you can do is you can click on the template in your top navigation bar here, and you can click Edit Note Template. Now, this is going to take you to the actual template editor versus that one note editor. And in this section here is where we can go ahead again and change all of those settings for every note output moving forward for my SOAP note multi-problem. What I can do then is just go ahead and hit save, and moving forward, it will always have the same those same settings. If I navigate back into that editor, another really exciting update that we have included in this new version of Mika AI is an update to our placeholders library. So just in terms of making sure we're all on the same page, placeholders are the data anchor points that the AI is searching for in your transcript and then going into your note output. You also may hear our team utilize the word jelly bean occasionally. We use them pretty interchangeably. So just to make sure I've defined that and everyone understands what I'm talking about. So previously, when it came to these placeholders, each placeholder was associated with a specific template, and you weren't able to share these placeholders across templates. What's great now is that if you had one that you really liked the output on consistently, you're able to share that across multiple templates. What we can also do, which is new and exciting, is further customize these placeholders. So if we click into the Customize section, you can see that we're now able to change the format with a simple click of a button. You can change the name and customize the name if you wish. And then lastly, and arguably the biggest update, is now you're able to view the prompt and edit it. So previously with these placeholders, there wasn't the visibility to see what the AI is being instructed to search for within that transcript, and also what it's being instructed to do with that information. So how it is relaying that. I'm going to show you what it looks like. So if you decided to erase all the instructions, you'll note that you're not able to save. And this is because without explicit instructions, there is no guide for what this placeholder is intended to do. Our team of data scientists have created these instructions specifically for the specific output or the data set that you're trying to pull into that note. So if you did want to play around with editing it or changing it, I do highly recommend using what is in there as your guide to creating a new one. Our data scientists have determined that this instruction will be the most beneficial for that output. So definitely read through it and take a look at the structure and what the instructions are saying to edit any changes. And again, this might take some playing around with. So if you do find that you edit it and only have one instruction in it, it's just not going to perform as it would with as much information as possible. Now, that being said, we do have a link directly to our customization guide right here. If you click into that, it'll take you to our another tab where it has a lot more information about how to best write a note, what to say, examples, and further information. What we have also updated is just the usability of this section too. So you're now able to search for other placeholders. You can also filter through based off of alphabetical or other criteria. And then to add a new placeholder to your template, it's as simple as clicking whichever one you want, and it will land in your template wherever your cursor is. If you hover over the the possible placeholders on the left-hand side, you'll see a little pop-up as well that describes it in a high-level format. There are different categories of these placeholders that you have the ability to add to these templates. So you can pull in patient and appointment information, which is either pulled from your EMR if you have integration or from the Mika database that you have put in regarding patient and appointment details. We have calculations as well. These are calculations that the AI will basically use a calculator for to determine based off of what inputs are given within the appointment. You have some numbers that you can pull through, so different numbers like weight, height, etc. can be pulled through, and dates and times as well. The next step of our webinar today is to go through how to create a placeholder. So what we can do is determine the type of placeholder. In this example, I'm just going to do a quick list to show you. You can type in the name of it, give the AI specific instructions of what you want it to do. So always select any symptoms mentioned. And then in this option section is where you can input those specific answers that you're looking for. So I'm going to add some symptoms that could be related to the appointment that I have in my demonstration. So we'll do cough, rash, and fever. And go ahead and hit create. You'll see that automatically this new placeholder pops up on the left-hand side, and then you would add it into your note template simply by clicking it and making sure your cursor was where you wanted that output to be in your end note. On the left-hand navigation bar, I'll just move to details where you can rename your template, add a description if needed, and then also select the type. We'll take another quick question break here. So let's see here. The question is, if a nurse does the weight and blood pressure, say, and it isn't in the Mika note, I wonder how to bring that into calculations. So this could be where you leverage that add instructions or add information section, and you could copy and paste the weight and blood pressure into that. How would you combine assessment and plan instead of reiterating the same material in both? Again, what you could do is play around with those instructions or the actual placeholder and explicitly say, don't repeat any of the information. Plan is moving forward from today, and play around with the different verbiage and instructions for each of those sections to try and customize it as much as possible to get the output that you're looking for. Okay, next question is, so I can now create note templates with unique customizations under the subjective jelly bean. Yes, you can create note templates with unique customizations for that specific subjective jelly bean if you so wish. You could also add new jelly beans to put under that subjective header if you wanted to have additional information pulled through. Okay. Next question is how do I get a detailed intake history, not as a SOAP note? So we do have different templates available where you can play around with what kind of information is pulling through. Alternatively, you could leverage some of those placeholders to pull in more medical history versus just the SOAP note. I can show a quick example too when I flip back to the other screen. Um, Last question. Okay, two more questions. Can I copy my jot notes from my encounter, add it to the instructions information section, and have it pop out a more polished note? Yes, you got it. Um, for sake of time, I'll just answer this next one, and then I'll come back to the other questions once we have the time here. I created a placeholder, but when I click it, it doesn't go into my template. Any advice? Yes, so that's a perfect segue back into flipping my screen here. Okay. So when you create that placeholder, it will automatically come up on this left-hand side, and then like all the other placeholders, you have to select which section you want that to go in by clicking your cursor there, and then clicking that placeholder, and it will pull it right through for you. So I'm going to click save here. And automatically, it's going to take me back to that appointment or encounter section, and it's going to redraft my note with that new placeholder. So you can see I put it at the bottom here just so I could find it easily. It scanned through the transcript to find any of those three symptoms I asked it to pull out. And of course, the only one that was indicated in this appointment here was rash. So you can see it pulled through the rash, and then I could add a little blurb here so it was clear what I was asking it to pull through. Um, Symptoms mentioned. Now, the alternative thing is I could have done that in the template editor section too. So every time it automatically output this symptom in this format. Now, that was all I had planned in terms of going through the new updates today. It looks like we're still getting some questions, which is amazing. So I will take a look through those and keep asking or answering them. I want you to keep asking them as we still have some more time here. So the next one, okay, the next question was, I have struggled with spacing when it comes to copying the note from Mika and pasting into either the EMR or even into a Word document. All the formatting gets lost and transforms it into one massive paragraph. That is a great question. So, what I would recommend is if you could send a private message in here to our moderator as well, and let us know which EMR you're trying to integrate that information with, and then we can give you more specific advice based off of that. Okay, next question. I'm struggling with punctuation slash format. I would like Mika to give the information in almost bullet form, i.e., each new idea, symptom on its own line, but I do not want any bullets or dashes before each line. So, what you could do is you could add this as an instruction to have the formatting in this specific capacity. So potentially you could try something along the lines of, with each new symptom, please start a new line. I wouldn't add anything specifically about bullet points because then that might automatically trigger that, but you could try a prompt, something along those lines. And again, if this specific formatting isn't working for you, please private message us and then we can reach out to you directly and schedule a one-on-one to discuss further. Those look like the only last questions here. If there are no other questions at this time, I want to thank you all so much for attending today. We are very excited about these updates and to share them with you. As you're playing around with the new functionality too, and you feel like you could use a little bit more one-on-one support, please don't hesitate to reach out. Our whole team here is happy to book a quick one-on-one call with you to walk through and get those new inputs and functionality working as best as we can for your specific practice. One more question on what I just said, which was in regards to how to reach out. So there are a couple ways. Let me show you probably the easiest way to reach out, which is directly through your account. So if I navigate back to my appointment screen here, you can see that we have our whole help center at the bottom of your appointments. There are step-by-step videos, tutorials, and help center articles, but you can also book a call directly with us from the far right. So you can book a meeting and then one of our support team folks will jump on that call with you to help you out. Great question. Thanks for asking that. And I think those were the last ones. So again, you can expect an email coming in the next few days with a link to this recording. And now you know how to reach out with any questions that you may have moving forward. Thanks so much, everyone. I hope you have a great rest of your day.